Today we're talking with Phil M. Jones, someone who I think is a master of influence and persuasion. You have produced the most listened to audiobook on Audible of all time.
So I'm told.
How?
You can look to perhaps be able to say that money isn't important and career growth isn't important and that you can focus on other things in your life. What is often being asked to solve is how do you help people achieve bigger sales results if they're people that don't see themselves as salespeople? Trying to teach people the skills that you can help change people's minds, but it isn't a punch for a punch. It isn't a script. Its conversational excellence comes from our ability to learn to play chess with language when everybody else is trying to play checkers. If you teach people examples, they trip over principles. So what I looked at was the core problems and puzzles that people have when communicating with others, and then packaged them in a way that people would like to taste, where they think that what they're doing is delivering magic words. They're not. They're just utilizing one example of executing on a principle.
I don't think a lot of people realize that everything is sales. It's not just sales, it's sales, right?
We're all selling something.
Yeah.
Sometimes a product or service, but more often than not, just an idea or
point of view.
Change of behavior or a point of difference. We're all looking to change people's minds.
Hey guys, Johnny Page here, and I'd love to give you a free copy of our latest book, Software as a Science. This book teaches 9 core frameworks that we have honed over our work with 3,000 founders. It tells the story of 60 different SaaS companies and really focuses on the science behind growing software companies. So if you're tired of spraying and praying all of these growth strategies, some of them working, some of them not, and ultimately not feeling like there's predictable growth in your SaaS business, then go to softwarebook.com, get a free copy of the book. All we ask you to do is pay for shipping. And after you get your copy of the book, you'll get access to a reader's portal where we have tons of resources. Our goal in this book is not that we fill your head with head knowledge, but that we actually make a tangible impact on your business. So there's a ton of resources to help you actually implement what we teach. So go to softwarebook.com for your free copy today.
So today we're talking with Phil M. Jones, someone who I think is a master of influence and persuasion. He's the author of Exactly What to Say. It's one of my favorite books personally. It's a bestseller. It's a must-read for anyone looking to improve their communication and their impact on the world. Phil's journey started at 14 years old washing cars, and since then he's built 5 multi-million-dollar companies, authored 7 best-selling books, and there's a cool stat about his audiobook I'm going to save for just a minute. But in the episode today, we're going to go deep into the psychology behind the words that we use. We'll talk about how simple phrases can completely shift outcomes and how to apply Phil's communication techniques in sales, in leadership, and in life. So let's welcome the man who knows exactly what to say. Phil, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me here. This is a joy.
I'm so excited. I was telling you before we started rolling, your book is one of my top 3 most gifted books from my bookshelf. And everyone who receives it, it's funny, you can gift someone a book and they'll be like, thanks for the book, and you never hear from them again. And your book, as recently as today, people I've given it to or recommended to are just like, oh, that book was so good. Like, I loved it.
Thank you. That's such a joy to hear.
Yeah, I really mean it, man. It's been a good one. And so I gotta say, the most interesting stat that I've heard of all of this is that you have produced the most listened to audiobook on Audible, nonfiction, of all time.
So I'm told.
How?
So I'm told. I mean, it is most listened to in the fact that it has both volume of repetition, both volume of sales and distribution, and then high levels of repetition. So I learned a stat from some of the work I did closer with Audible is that the average audiobook is listened to less than 0.6 of a time. So most people that start an audiobook don't finish it. Yeah, my little book, Exactly What to Say, has an average listen length of over 6.5 times.
6.5 times start to finish.
Correct. And has volume, and therefore that's what then amplifies that whole piece out. But I wrote the book with that form following the function, and I think a lot of people produce a book and add scale to it on purpose. I mean, how many great books have you read where you're like, this could have been a lot less?
Yeah.
Like, I got the main point in the first few chapters. The rest was just further evidence. And having been a big reader for some time, my goal in really engineering Exactly What to Say as a book was to respect the reader, is to look to say, can I take giant ideas around influence and persuasion and cram them into a tiny little book that you can get cover to cover in, well, as the audiobook puts it, 72 minutes. So I think we did it, and I think people are grateful to the point that the book cuts out all the fluff, gets straight to information that is useful and applicable towards people. And the end result is people like, I want to go again. I want to go again.
Yeah.
I want to go again. And, I still do interviews like the one I'm doing today about my new book that I wrote in 2017.
Yeah.
So, it's that repetition part of it is what drives most of it.
Yeah, and I love the creativity too, because most people, when they I think a lot of people resonate with what you just said. They read a book and like, this could have been an essay, or in some cases maybe a blog post, right? But and so when you say you cut the fluff, most people would correlate that to page count. But I mean, I have the book, like even in size, like physical size of the book, you can hold it in your hands.
Yep.
Like, and obviously that was a deliberate decision. Like, was that all in service of
Highly engineered.
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted the book to do a number of things. Easy to read. I wanted the reader to feel a sense of success in working through every page. Is, if you can start a flight and end a flight and read a book on said short flight, like that was a good flight.
Yeah.
And that was one of the avatars I very much had in mind when crafting the book, is busy entrepreneur, busy sales professional, somebody keen to be able to level up their skills, but didn't want it to feel like a chore.
Yeah.
I then produced it in paperback rather than hardcover, because I wanted people to be okay abusing the book, throwing it in a work bag, having it sit in the glove box of their car if they traveled a ton, having it sit on the desk and have Post-it notes scribbled over it. Like, it's not supposed to be something that you preserve on a library shelf. It is give it away, get another one. And I wanted its price point to be low. I speak a ton. I wanted to be able to hit a certain price point in production to maximize margin when we then speak at events.
Yeah. It's all utility, huh?
Yeah. Hugely thought about from the start. And even like we customized the book for different organizations and different industries, and changed the color palette, etc. So I had the whole operation and distribution methodology of the book all mapped out before we took it to
I have
market.
another one, right? Exactly What to Sell, I think, is one of your customized.
Exactly How to Sell and Exactly Where to Start are two different books, but we wrote Exactly What to Say for real estate agents as well, and that is the best-selling book in the real estate industry, has been for the last 5 years. But we do custom editions from a white label point of view.
Got it.
So I did Exactly What to Say for the auto industry in collaboration with Volkswagen. I did Exactly What to Say for accountants that was at a big accounting conference last week. We've done Exactly What to Say for professional photographers. And then we've plugged that into the Professional Photographers of America from an association level. We've done, 300 custom editions.
Wow, that's cool. I didn't realize that. There's only... I can only think of one other author I've seen do that. I think Michalowicz did that with Profit First. He's done that in a few verticals, but not 300. I mean, that's impressive, man.
Well, we also do it white label and without making a ton of noise about it.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, what gives it the ability to scale in the background. And a lot of entrepreneurs think about scaling as something that is loud and proud and everybody sees it. And my business avatar is like, if I could be anyone, I want to be Tabasco sauce. Why? Because Tabasco sauce are they're on all the tables. They're known by everybody. People largely think pretty decent things about Tabasco sauce, but they're never stealing the show.
Yeah.
No one's like, I got to go to that restaurant because they have Tabasco, but it gets reordered, it gets reordered, it gets reordered. And if you can learn to be an evergreen condiment, as opposed to try to be the entree,
Yeah.
then you can hit scale at levels that are different to most others. And I think that's why we're at nearly 3 million copies of the book, and many great best-selling books are at 20, 25,000 copies. So that's the difference in scale.
How did you learn exactly what to say?
I just made it up. No, I struggled in early stage leadership, right? I was hungry and I wanted to be able to achieve more for my life. I built my first early businesses just from hustle. I was knocking on the doors of my neighbors, asking them if they wanted their cars washed. By the age of 15, my little car washing business was having me making more money than most of my school teachers.
Wow.
I built other service-based businesses through my teens, a mobile disco business and a landscaping business. And we would just leverage any relationship I could, an events business that we would do parties for people under the age of 18, anything that we could do that would allow us to be able to generate revenue and build small teams of people around it and get to work. It was fun. But then when I found myself in my first quote unquote proper leadership role, I turned down university and I got a job joining the grad program for a large department store retail group. And bear in mind, I wasn't a grad. So here I am at 18 years of age, very quickly being asked to lead teams of people that are, many of them over double my age, all of them with an extended tenure. And I got a lot of age prejudice. And the result of which was an inability to really project ideas and leadership principles onto people and expect respect. And what I developed accidentally really as a leadership style was, instead of telling people what to do, is if for example, like Dan was looking to get better at something and you, Matt, were the best in the world at something, then I wouldn't tell Dan what to do. I'd say, hey, Dan, I've been watching what Matt's been up to. And there are 3 things that Matt does that are remarkably different to the way that you do things. If you could do this, this, and this more like what Matt does, chances are that would help you level up your own performance. So I started to become obsessed by people who were really great at things inside of a business operation. And what I then started to learn was that the difference between those that did good and those that did great, they had efficacy in their work tracks. They would look at all the predictable moments they're stepping into again and again and again, and they'd reach for repeated sequences of words. And I'm like, this is kind of cool. That then carried through many of my early sort of sales training methodology. That then carried through into how I would deliver training programs towards our organizations. Is I'd look for the magic words that we could use that would allow people to reduce inefficiency, reduce friction in sales conversations. Fast forward to around 2008, I started my own little sales training company, and I would deliver 2-day programs, 3-day programs, 5-day programs. And then I'd meet people long after those sales training programs and they'd say, Phil, I'm still using your stuff, still using those magic words. I'm like, huh. So on everything we taught them, what they are remembering most is the precise sequences of words that were delivered inside those programs. And I started to get known as Mr. Magic Words. If I was looking to run speaking events where I was trying to collect leads and then bring people towards my coaching consulting business, is I would speak on magic words, or I'd speak on exactly what to say. And if there were 15 speeches that were happening at the same time on the event and we're all fighting for attention, title alone is I'd be bringing the lion's share of the people into my seminar hall. I'm like, I guess I've got something here. I'm starting to develop a proven method. And like fast forward to where we're at today is I published a little book called Exactly What to Say in 2017, which is actually a rewrite of a book that I wrote called Magic Words in 2012, and is the title of a series of seminars I delivered in the network marketing industry. Like when I published this in 2017, it was the distillation of already decades worth of work. But now 2017 to this point in time is I've been tested on the work a ton. You put a piece of work out into the market, then what happens is the market reciprocates back at you and tells you, do you really know your stuff? And I've now worked in over 800 different industries. We've helped apply the principles from Exactly What to Say into everything from, parenting to being a politician, from things as complex as like military scenarios, right through to makeup tutorials. Like it's been tested everywhere in between. And it works.
Yeah.
We all launch things. Sometimes we're like, I think it works. I've got my own proven method of it working. It's worked in my life. It's worked in many other people's lives. But seeing how the body of work has evolved and realize how the message is carried even when I'm not the messenger. Yeah. That's been something that's been very, very, very interesting.
That's an interesting test. It's like a version of that old leadership saying, right? Like you can see how your team's doing, how they behave when you're not around. It's to see how your proven method is working, right?
Yeah, when you take yourself out of the method.
Yeah.
And how do I understand this? I obsess at a level that most people don't. And forever, I've believed that every word that leaves your mouth is helping or hurting and nothing is neutral. I find it beyond fascinating, the time, effort, and energy that people like SaaS founders put into, the headline on their homepage of their website, and what happens at all the waterfall drop-offs in their funnel, and how do we geek out on every one of the automations and what the email sequences that come behind the support, retention, and implementation. But they don't give anywhere near that same level of intentionality as to what comes out of the mouth of all the people inside their organization, what they say when they're in a moment looking to influence somebody else for investment or for, bulk acquisition. It blows my mind that we obsess about the written word and we obsess about the written word in tech, but we don't obsess about the words that leave our mouth when we're conversing with people that could change our worlds.
We say this all the time in business, right? It's like people don't remember what you say. They remember how you made them feel. And
for sure,
like you make them feel a certain kind of way with the words that leave your mouth.
You got it.
It's funny. So the foundation of this process, from listening to you explain it, is you were essentially in your early days seeking out mastery and then doing like pattern identification and figuring out like what patterns correlate to the mastery that I just saw.
Yeah. And the puzzle I was often being asked to solve is how do you help people achieve bigger sales results if they're people that don't see themselves as salespeople. There are many ways you could take somebody who has the word sales or business development in their job title, or you can empower them with skills that are going to help them make more money, and they'll lap it up and they'll follow it through to production. But when you're working with people in a healthcare space, when you're working with people who see themselves as professional services, when you're working with people who are entrepreneurial a thing, but they definitely don't want to come across as salesy, you can't teach them sales skills. You have to teach them skills that result in them achieving more sales. So all of my early sales training work was trying to demystify sales language to translate it into a way that real humans could communicate with other real humans in a way that created mutually beneficial outcomes.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't think a lot of people realize that everything is sales. It's not just sales, it's sales, right? I mean,
we're all selling something.
Yeah.
Sometimes a product or service, but more often than not, just an idea or a
point of view,
change of behavior or a point of difference. We're all looking to change people's minds.
So you've referenced this phrase proven method a few times. And in one of, you've written about this a few times, that you say a proven method book tends to, paraphrasing, but tends to hit harder than like a big idea book.
I don't know whether it necessarily hits harder, but a proven method book for anybody that is in the expert type space is more likely to translate because you could hit it harder.
Yeah.
You can bring more weight to it because you're saying, no, this works because I know it works because it's been my proven method. A big idea book could change the world too. We see lots of big idea books that show up in the world that have gone on to change the world. Take books like Seth Godin's Purple Cow.
Sure.
It's a big idea. Take books like Malcolm Gladwell's The Tipping Point. Big idea. But if you're going to launch a big idea book, you want to have some confidence that somebody else believes this is a big idea as well as you. And they're prepared to be able to put their reputation, their distribution, their money, their neck on the line to say, we're going to make this big idea a big idea. But if you're reliant upon making noise through your IP, you're probably going to be more certain of achieving an outcome if you're leading with your proven method.
So the interesting, I think there's a bit of a dichotomy when I think about this because you've had widespread success, 300 different versions of this book, for instance, you were saying earlier. But I feel like most people, when they have a proven method, it tends to be more niched, more confined to their experience. Like you seem to have done both, right? And so like, what's been the process to unniche your proven method over time?
Reps and like one thing that you probably don't know is I am possibly the United States leading authority on sales skills for audiologists.
I didn't know that.
Right. Because you didn't need to know that.
Right.
I'm also one of the leading authorities in how professional speakers can generate and self-generate more high-value leads and inquiries and how professional speakers, and you didn't need to know that.
Yep.
And I have deep knowledge and understanding on the self-publishing industry. You didn't need to know that. Because people that need to know who you are, they only need to know who you are to them. I think the mistake that we have when we go to market and we have utility in our offering is it's easy to say that we are all these things to all these people, and therefore you're nothing to me. If you're looking to open a can from the kitchen in your pantry, what you're not looking for is a Swiss Army knife. You go looking for a can opener.
Yeah.
So I would invite people that if you are looking to add utility to your services and you want to be able to go wide over time, is learn all the narrow ways that you help very specific niches and then watch the marketplace join them all together. Like it will join up the threads, but you still have to run with independent threads into independent scenarios.
So it's not about being unniched, it's about being multi-niched.
Correct.
Interesting.
And, you could decide on Tuesdays, you are hyper-focused on how your software solution is going to transform the dental space. And then on the Wednesday, you can be like, we are hyper-focused on how our solution is going to transform the chiropractic space. And on Thursdays and Fridays, you can be all in on your core existing service offering of people who are involved in the ABC space, right?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter, but if you're all things to all people, you're nothing to everybody.
That's such an important distinction because I see a lot of, especially earlier stage tech founders struggle with this. We say, and I struggled with it. I almost burned down my own company in the early days over this, where it's like, it could help all these different people. So why wouldn't I?
Yep.
And then it's exactly what you just described.
Yep. And what you need when you're building a reputation is you need to get to a point of the fact that you've helped credible people who are connected to credible people achieve credible results. It's easier to get that down a single highway. Like you could pick an industry and you can, help early adopters, and then you can keep going, and before you know it, is the leading brand inside that micro niche is talking to you about how your solution is helping them. Then you've got, well, if you were good enough for them.
Yeah.
Now we go wide on this. And my friend Rory Vaden talks about this in his body of work around building personal brands. And he talks about a theory that comes from another friend of mine by a guy by the name of Peter Sheehan. And what Rory presents this as is a theory called Sheehan's wall.
Okay.
What many people look to do when they're trying to break through their personal brand is they are, firing their advice at everything. It's like one day they're talking about health and wellness, the next day they're talking about wealth creation, then they're talking about spirituality, then they're talking about funnels, then they're talking about winning on social media. And all they're doing is they're hitting different versions all over the wall. His viewpoint on what he learned from Peter Sheehan, which is why he calls it Sheehan's wall, is that you should just pick one spot and keep hitting that. Keep hitting that. And then the world knows you as that. And only once you break through the wall do you then get the ability to be able to go and play on all those other things. Like, we don't mind that Drew Barrymore is talking about baking and books and all these other things because the world knows that she's Drew Barrymore.
Yeah.
Like, you get to be able to do that over a period of time. And Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson doesn't just have to talk about being a great wrestler and then being a great action movie maker. Like, now he can be an authority on tequila.
Yeah.
Because all those other things were true. Yeah. But we try to jump straight to being the generalist, and it's expensive.
All right, so we got to talk about this book. So if you haven't read the book, go buy it. But inside the book, it's essentially structured as a series of these magic words or magic
23
phrases.
sequences of magic words.
Yeah. And so I want to just ask you, like, it's probably like picking a favorite kid, but what's your favorite phrase in the book?
There isn't one. And if I let you into a secret, the book is positioned as 23 sequences of magic words. It's not.
Okay.
It's 23 principles around influence and persuasion disguised as magic words. And what I've learned as a trainer through the years is if you try to teach people principles, they struggle to find examples. If you teach people examples, they trip over principles. So what I looked at was the core problems and puzzles that people have when communicating with others. The overarching principles that are well-researched and well-scientifically backed around influence and persuasion, and then crafted examples that would showcase that principle in action in an applicable moment that was highly relevant to multiple areas of life. And then packaged them in a way that people would like to taste, where they think that what they're doing is delivering magic words.
Yep.
They're not. They're just utilizing one example of executing on a principle.
So it is a big idea book disguised as a proven method book.
Could well be, right? There could be big ideas in there.
Yeah. That's super cool.
So no favorite words as such. I think favorite words in favorite moments. I think there are examples of sequences of words that have become more interesting to me over time, particularly in the utility of the book being out in the world. One in particular is, in the OG version of the book that we're talking about here today, is I write the phrase, "What do you know?" And the reason I find that so interesting is because of the way that people read it. I've had dozens of people through the years come to me and they're like, "I love the book, but there's no way I could use one of them." What was it again? It was that one where you said, "What do you know?"
Yeah.
I'm like, I never wrote it that way.
Yeah, right? You said it twice.
Yeah.
And on one, the emphasis was on know. What do you know? And this was, what do you know?
Right.
Totally different.
Totally different. And what's hard about a book of this nature, particularly when you're not playing with the audiobook but the written format, is you're not thinking about tonality and cadence and even, what fuel you're using to be able to drive the conversation. All the words are better fueled with curiosity, choosing a curious tone to further understand other people's context. So when I wrote the real estate book, and now in our certification programs, is we've revised that sequence of words to what do you understand? So naturally, the change in words makes it harder to be passive aggressive with the tone.
Or even overtly aggressive.
And I think, though, that sequence of words is particularly interesting in the times that we're currently living in. Why? Because many of us are so opinionated. And as the world tries to stretch us into all these versions of right and wrong and these polarizing opinions, the ability to actually question somebody else's opinion without attacking them is a skill set that's getting fast forgotten. So I'm in love with that sequence of words because of its ability to start more meaningful conversations. Quite simply down to, like, if you had a different political opinion to somebody else, is you could ask questions like, well, what do you understand about all of the differences between the different policies that exist on each side? Most people are going to say, well, not enough. And that now creates a space that we can inform and educate each other. That creates a space that we can learn and grow together. And it's those moments that I find frustrating that they don't happen. We're so good at arguing, and we're arguing in silos and building bandwagons around our singular belief, but not actually entering into meaningful debate with people who have different perspectives, different points of views. And I think our world gets worse when we don't challenge each other.
I agree. And it's funny, man, I'm a visual thinker, and I'm literally picturing like two people on opposite sides of a table, and one picking up their chair and sliding around and being like, let's fill this void of information together.
It's got it. Or at least like both picking our chairs up and moving it to the end of the table and looking out the view together, right? Yeah. We don't have to be in this mismatch all the time. And we teach processes in our certification programs now about how the words can stick together, and how you can build a stack and a sequence of words, and how you can go from a what do you understand question to a, well, what is your experience question, to a how important is it to you question, to a when was the last time question, to a could it be possible question. And trying to teach people the skills that you can help change people's minds, but it isn't a punch for a punch. It isn't a script. It isn't a they say that, you say this. It's conversational excellence comes from our ability to learn to play chess with language when everybody else is trying to play checkers.
There's a couple that I'd love for you to unpack, if that's okay.
For sure.
The way I see it, you've got three options. Why three?
Okay. Big decisions are hard to make. Small ones are easy. You ever found yourself stepping into the Cheesecake Factory and looking at the menu?
Yeah. You got 472 options.
I remember being overwhelmed the first time I came to the US and somebody took me to a Mexican restaurant. And I looked at the Mexican restaurant dish and I'm like, oh my goodness, how am I going to order between these, 85 different versions? And it was only later in life where I realized they're all about the same dish. It just presents them on the plate in different orders. But that gave me some confidence. I'm just forever reminded that big decisions are hard to make and small ones are easy. If you give somebody two choices, that feels like the right option and the wrong option. And look at it this way. If you were being asked to order a cup of coffee in a coffee restaurant, if the choice was the small or the large, these are polarizing choices. Like there's a right one and a wrong one. It's like, one of these might not be quite right. If you give people multiple choices, they find decision-making easier. I'm pretty sure that SaaS founders have found this out on a number of occasions when trying to be able to get people to subscribe to their products, right? They do things like, we've got this basic entry-level offer, and then we've got this super premium offer up here, and then here's the one that most people pick. Like, you do anything you want. You can choose, you can decide, but probably this one, right? So that's what we end up doing, is that when we give people three options, decision-making becomes easier. One option can be procrastinated. Two is confusing. Five might help. But five could still be overwhelming. As the science proves, give somebody three decisions to make, and three is easier. How many times have you been to a restaurant and a corporate meal, and what you were presented with?
The prefix.
Right? Yeah. Oh, the chicken, the beef, or the vegetarian. Yeah. This is easy. See, even when there's only two options on the prefix, there's still three. Yeah. Because there's the chicken, the beef, or something else. Yeah. And you might be the something else person sometimes, right? But limited choices makes decision-making easier. So anytime somebody's stuck in a complex decision and you present them with three options, they're like relief. That's the instant feeling, relief. Now, if you can then attach some skill to this and dress these three options, then chances are you can make decision-making even easier. SaaS founders have been doing this for years, right? Little one, you get this number of bullet points. Big one is only for like enterprise, etc. But in the middle one, which is only a third of the price of that one there, you get this list of bullets here that is a demonstrable size. So therefore, people know which one to pick. Yeah, it makes it easy. How does this play out though in language? If you want people to pick a certain option, you have to remember that the old saying that you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. But know that you can if you put enough salt in the oats. You can make a thirsty horse. So when you're addressing three options, what I would typically advise people to do is to make the first option a viable option, but paint it out exactly as what it is. Like, tell the truth about that option, no embellishment, no good news. Just help them realize like how much work, effort, and energy could be involved with picking that one. Then take the second choice and give them a definite no in the second choice. spend next to no time on it, allow them in their mind's eye, and then finish on the third choice with all the joy and pleasure and upside and benefit of what somebody gets from picking that choice. And let's put this to work for those that are joining us right here, right now. Give us a scenario where somebody could be stuck in decision making. Give me 3 choices, and let's see if what we can do is dress this up as a real world example.
Cool. Yeah, I think about it let's anchor on the SaaS founder thing, right? So you've got, say someone's just launching a software company,
okay,
right? And they've got an option to do all the work for you as a consultant.
Okay.
They probably don't want to do that.
Yep.
Right. And then they've got the plan that they want you that's high margin, super sexy, enough revenue where it really makes a great business. Then they've got the low confidence offer at the bottom that they really don't want you to take.
What's the low confidence offer? Tell me some more about that.
It's I don't know, let's say it's a do-it-yourself, no one-to-one interaction, but maybe they're not confident in their product yet. So they're not sure that it's going to work really well. And it probably doesn't have, as great unit economics if the retention's not as good.
Okay. So what you're looking at is they can hire you as a consultant, big set of fees, have you on board for a short period of time, and then you disappear. The middle option is a kind of do it yourself. Here are some tutorials. You might be able to make this work if you're prepared to be able to drop everything you're doing and become highly skilled at something you've never proven any level of skill at in your life. And then the third option is for them to be able to invest and commit to being a long-term partner.
Yeah, like a hybrid of the two almost. That's where you want them to land.
Okay. So you'd say, look, the way I see it is you have 3 options. Like I could come into your organization and we could talk collectively about creating a custom solution for what you believe to be a custom problem or puzzle that exists inside your company. And you'd be paying me for my time and my energy, and you'd be looking to be able to hire somebody at premium fees on a full-time basis that is possibly not necessary to be able to work from you on a full-time basis. And once we have this up and in the sky, you'd then need to support that operation yourself. You'd need to then have to train and hire other individuals inside your organization to support that. And you'd probably lose the innovation that is coming from somebody who's highly committed to this as an organization. But absolutely, that's an option. We could explore you investing a ton of money into me being a consultant inside your organization. By alternative, if this is just about saving money, you could do this internally yourself. I could send you some of the videos, send you some of the sheets across. Yeah. You could try and figure this out all by yourself. Or by alternative, you could look at adopting this fantastic new product solution that we've engineered precisely for scenarios like this, join a number of other like-minded companies that are solving similar problems, work alongside our technology team, having the chance to be able to shape and scope what you're looking for the features and benefits of a product like this, actually delivering for you, helping create a universal product that is going to be more beneficial not only in your organization but for others, safe in the knowledge that because this has worked for others too, that there is a full-time support team that sit behind it to keep innovating and refining this, all for a fixed monthly fee. Out of those 3 options, which one do you think is going to be easier for you?
They're only going to remember the third one.
Right?
Yeah, it's great.
But I'm showing you what can happen when you present somebody with 3 options. And I think for SaaS founders as well, this is a great tool to get people to make a decision about coming to work with you.
Yeah.
Look, the way I see it is you have 3 options. Sure, you could stay in your comfy job. You can pick up your $250,000 a year, and you can continue to be able to punch your time card week in, week out and enjoy telling your friends you work for ABC company. And you can keep doing so until the day that you become irrelevant. By alternative, you can give up on the idea of being a developer altogether. You can live into that van life that you've always dreamed of. And you can look to perhaps be able to say that money isn't important and career growth isn't important, and that you can focus on other things in your life. Or by alternative is, whilst you're still young enough, whilst you're still hungry enough, is you could take the leap into a fast growth company. Somebody's committed to actually making an impact in the world, where your contributions are going to make a giant difference towards the outcomes that you are looking to be able to get your hands around, knowing that you truly are a big key cog in a meaningful machine, and perhaps get a utility resume point on the work that you're doing that showcases to the world what you're really made out of. Out of those 3 options, which one do you think your future self will be most proud of? Yeah. But you do you.
This episode of the SaaS Academy podcast is sponsored by SaaS Academy. And rather than me sitting here and telling you how great we are, which I'll tell you, I do believe we are. I used to be a client of SaaS Academy and it changed my life forever. But I want to share with you a few of the testimonials of founders just like you who have been through our programs and seen some incredible results.
It's interesting. It's like it's a verbal version of what we teach in SaaS on price anchoring. It's
100%.
the same thing.
It's 100% the same thing.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping people see the utility in everyday language.
Yeah.
It could be utilized when trying to help your spouse decide what they want for dinner. It could be utilized when trying to get somebody to choose you from a work point of view. But it's equally useful in, a pitch presentation when you're looking to be able to get somebody to choose an enterprise solution or put funds inside your organization. Is when you give people 3 options and you stack them in the right order, you're really only giving them one option.
So I feel like the answer might have exist in what you just did, but I want to touch on it explicitly. You talk, especially more recently, about this concept of labeling. Can you unpack that a little bit?
We live in a world that wants us to stop using labels. However, if you walked into a pantry that had 100 canisters in it, none of them had labels on, and you needed to find the thing you were looking for quickly, how much would you enjoy this idea of not adding labels? Like, it would be pretty darn frustrating. And whether we like it or not, labels are useful. When going through periods of chaos, what people are looking for is order. So when you can label a chaotic moment in a way that brings new order, you're in good shape. A couple of examples from the book. One is if somebody's going through a series of panic, if you use the label "don't worry," then there's a strong
possibility that you can reduce the panic. Now, the issue that some people have in this is they don't understand the skill that's required to use a label like "don't worry." Because what they do is they say "don't worry," and then what they put behind that sequence of words is something that creates worry. What do you do? I do a lot of work inside the real estate space, so people I use this all the time. When people miss out on the home that they're looking for, I say to them, "Don't worry, we'll get the next one." I'm like, "Are you sure you're going to get the next one?" So they all get the next one. Right, they're right. Yeah. You have to be able to put something fundamentally true behind the label if you want the label to work. And in that example, that might be, well, don't worry, there is new inventory coming to the market every single day, and we are well positioned to be able to see that inventory before anybody else. I get relief because it's amplified with truth. If you create relief with a "don't worry" statement and you present something that sits behind it that is not 100% true, you reduce worry and then create new worry. So the label becomes a problem. I'm also going to prove how labels are useful to create numbers in the lives of people. Do me a favor and just imagine 100 people in the room. If there were 100 people in the room, and I said most people, how many people am I talking about? If I said many people, how many people am I talking about? 70. If I said some people, how many talking about? Maybe half. If I said a few people, a handful. Couple, 3, 4. See, I never gave you any numbers, and you jumped straight to numbers pretty darn quickly. Yeah. You decided instantaneously that you knew what percentile of people I was talking about, purely based on those labels. I never gave you any numbers. Most good than 50 more. You found numbers, and whatever numbers you found were right. And this is what we can utilize in a language. The mistake that many people make is that they always talk in absolutes. Perhaps the one direct piece of what sounds to be counterintuitive advice I'll give is to never speak in absolutes. Because when you speak in absolutes, you create friction in the other person's mindset. Ever found yourself in a scenario, maybe even a home life, where somebody's like, "You always leave the toilet seat up." Yeah. And you're like, "Well, no, there was this one sign on November 16th, if you guys didn't allow it." That's it. That's it. Like, so what happens is it creates conflict because the statement isn't true. If in that same scenario they said, "Hey, look, like, so often you leave the toilet seat up," you're like, "Dang, that's right. I do." Yeah. Full acceptance. So when you talk in always and nevers, etc., you create friction. And you see this showing up if it was copy all the time. You see it showing up in their spoken words with others. So labels are useful because they create numbers, they create visuals, they create order amongst chaos. Simply understand that the labels you're using are either helping or hurting. Yeah. And if you're using them, use them to good intent. So with the numerical example that we just ran through, like, how would you anticipate that changes a conversation we're having? Well, if I was to say, look, most companies in your scenario that come on board with us experience like black. What I've done is I've created confidence that they're not alone in stepping towards the solution you can provide. Yet I could equally say, see, most people in their industry are nowhere near as innovative as this. They're nowhere near ready to be able to adopt a scenario like this. It's only a few that have the innovation, the infrastructure, and the foresight to be able to realize how a solution like this could actually work for. So I can go 95.5 depending upon what outcome I'm looking to be able to correct without actually calling it correct.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I love it. So there's so much I want to get to on leadership. I could spend hours on this book, but look, if you don't have this book, you should read.
It's funny, right? It's an hour to read, yet we could take hours to unpack.
I mean, that's how you know that there's something magical lurking beneath the words in the book, right? And it's so cool. So I was joking, so it is a big idea. Look at it away, right? Because
really form following function of what the model is asking a book to be.
Yeah, well, I think it's funny. I focus a lot on just mastery in general. I'm just like enamored with the concept. I think that it's just fascinating to me what it takes to be world class at anything. Mm-hmm. And I think that this is one of those examples where just the depth of what it takes to be great at something, the way you've mastered this concept. So there's so much beneath the surface always. Like nothing is surface level. Nothing figures into this conversation. It's just like a dipping toe in the pool on the depth of this topic, which is really interesting. But what I want to shift gears on this, talk about, just zooming out from the specific turns of phrase into the leadership philosophies as a whole. And place that I'd love to start, you've heard about, spoken about, I'm very passionate enough, is this concept of feedback, what it really means inside an organization. I'm looking down here, you had a quote in a blog you recently said, "Stop looking for praise and instead seek trusted feedback."
Yep.
Which makes sense on the surface. And it's the thing that so many people say that they want. And then they did that they're quite ready for it. But before we talk about that, question I have is how you create, like in real life, a culture of feedback in your organization.
Okay. It's a big question. Again, we could talk about this for hours. Let's focus on this trusted feedback. If you want to receive trusted feedback and not praise in its place, who are you entrusting that feedback to? I'll use a very simple example. I deliver a lot of professional presentations. I've been paid to speak over 3,000 times. And there are a lot of people that are willing to share their opinion. And you occasionally get audience members who say things like, "Hey, can I give you some feedback?" No, thank you is an okay response. But if I'm looking for trusted, targeted feedback, there's a strong possibility I'm working on something specific. And if I get the opportunity to have another speaker friend in the audience, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to that trusted professional and who I know understands the craft and say, "Here are 3 things that I'm working on in this speech. Will you do me a huge favor and just look to see if this lands in the way that I'm intending to? Here's something I'm trying here. Give me 3 things you like about it. 1 thing that could be better. Yeah. And by the way, I'm planning on being able to do XYZ today, just in the tempo and the tenure. My goal is that it feels like this. Let me know if I'm on the money, off the money, or like it did different. Now I'm telling somebody what feedback I'm looking for and giving them a frame for them to say, here's what feedback looks like."
We should do the same with our employees. If we want a culture of feedback, we're not saying we've got a suggestion box. We're not saying at our meeting, "So come on, everybody, what do you think we should do differently?" And what happens is they tell you things we should do differently. And then you say, "No, not like that." Right? We don't teach people how to do feedback. There's a 2-question questionnaire I would invite everybody to run with their key stakeholders in their organization. It's only 2 questions. If you can run this 2-question questionnaire, you'll gather about as much market research as you require in order to be able to make the necessary improvements you're looking for. Whether this is employee facing or customer facing or prospect facing, if you ask somebody what 3 things do they like best about, you get some really quite interesting response. Imagine saying to your employees, "What 3 things do you like best about working here?" They'll actually give you some very precise answers. When you say, "What 3 things do you like best about?" what they tell you is, firstly, the first thing they think of. Because they got 3 goes, it comes into head, it comes out of mouth, no processing required.
Yeah.
The second thing they tell you is almost certainly the most important thing. Imagine this, right? If you were at a fairground and you were completing like a little competition of trying to shoot a basketball through a hoop. And if you get one in, you get a prize. Well, the first one, you just kind of like, let's just fill this out, see what happens. The second one, well, here I'm taking this one as seriously as possible because I don't want to be 2 for no, right?
Yeah.
And put all that pressure on the final one. Now, if you then loop it and swoop it with the second, what do you do with the third shot? Mess about a little, right?
Yeah.
You have some fun with this. So this is what happens when you say what 3 things you like best about working here. What they tell you in the third thing is their favorite just for fun. Would that be useful? If you knew the first thing that your employees think of when they're asked what do they like about working here, you knew the most important thing, and you know what they like just for fun?
Yeah, no doubt.
One question got you there.
Yeah.
It earned you the right to ask the second question in this questionnaire, which is if there was one thing you could change about us, what would it be? But you see, because we've given somebody the space to ask the first 3 questions, and they've given you all this good news, how do they feel about telling you brutally truthfully about their dislike with that second question? No worries, because it's stacked. We're not saying we don't like it here. We said that there's a lot that we like,
Yeah.
and they give you a brutal quick answer. And it might be like, I mean, the one thing I'd change is stop sending us emails at the weekend. You're like, I can do that.
Yeah.
I can do that.
So solvable.
Right. And often you just find hundreds of things you could solve. And
Yeah.
SaaS founders, like if you're looking for feedback on your product, what difference would it make if you could pick up the phone to 100 real users of your product at different levels of an organization and actually have a meaningful conversation with them and say, what 3 things do you love best about working with the product? And allow them to slowly give their answers. And if there was one thing you could change, what would that one thing be? And then take that qualitative and quantitative data and then make business critical decisions, you'd probably do pretty good from it. Instead, we say, well, I'm going to devise this amazing survey. I'm going to blast it out to everybody. We're going to send it to 15,000 users and we're going to get some really intelligent information. You don't get intelligent information because who are the people that fill in the surveys? It's fundamentally biased from the start from the people that the kind of people that like to complete surveys.
Yeah.
And the feedback that you think is the consensus of opinion is almost certainly not the consensus of opinion. So looking to get feedback as a leader is all about creating frames of engagement for feedback. It's all it comes down to. And if you're looking for trusted feedback, who are you trusting? Which means you're choosing. You're not just inviting feedback, you're choosing who you want feedback from. And having empowered that somebody as somebody who's capable of feeding back into your life, what are the rules of engagement on that feedback so that it's going to add appreciating value inside your world or your organization?
I would love to flip the coin over for a minute, though, right?
Sure.
Because I would imagine there's a right way to receive feedback.
There are consequences to incorrectly receiving feedback. And almost certainly a way that is going to bring negative consequences is for you looking to yeah, but the feedback at the time. Any version of yeah, but in the feedback is argumentative.
Yeah.
It's combative. So avoid that at all costs. If you're looking for further explanation, look for further explanation. Sometimes it means we have to punctuate their feedback. So if it came at us like a punch, what you want to do is to block it and then redirect it. So if they share with you some feedback you don't like, you could punctuate it with words like thank you. You could punctuate it with words like interesting. What you can then do is you can ask them some specifics around their feedback to give you further context. So how often does that show up in your daily routine? When was the last time that you experienced that? Who else has shared those same kind of concerns?
Yeah.
Same is true on the positive. Interesting. So how often do you utilize that feature? When was the last time that you used that feature? Who else in your organization has expressed? See how those very specific fact-finding questions, they get you color.
Yeah.
Instead, we say, can you put some more color on that?
Which doesn't mean anything.
It's like, can you give me some more specifics?
Yeah.
Like, well, what specifics are you looking for? You see how this just heightens anxiety?
Yeah.
If we're brave enough to actually slow down the process, we can speed up the outcome. And SaaS founders know this. Every one of your solutions that you're asking people to pay for on a monthly subscription basis takes something complex, makes it simple, turns it into a series of steps, and allows something to happen repeatedly, more fluidly, with more guaranteed outcomes. Because you've engineered it.
Yeah.
Engineer your spoken conversations too.
But because it's so tempting to do it. But I feel like that costs you the next feedback, right? Like that's what breaks down the psychological safety that I think your team needs to give it to you in the first place.
If you've ever been a 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old, you should have enough reps of realizing, but doesn't work.
Yeah, but he started it.
Right? We tried it with our parents. We tried it with other elders, our teachers, our friends. Yeah. Every time that we get called out on something, we jump for but. And how well did it work? Never. So why would it work now?
That's interesting. I think my biggest takeaways from that are setting the frame, like teaching people how to engage in the feedback. That's super valuable.
And it can even happen in meetings, right? Do you have a rating system that plays out in the final 5 minutes of every team leadership meeting?
Yeah.
Do you create, we have a process that we teach called LBs and NTs. LB stands for like best. NT stands for next time. So if we're looking to give feedback about how an event experience went, we'll get together as a team and say, what are our LBs? Everybody's written their LBs. And we have this whole expression moment that say, here's what I like best about the way we showed up today. And we exhaust the LBs.
Yeah.
Anything else, anything else, anything else, anything else? Okay, that's all the LBs. What about NTs? What do we got? But you see how that frame isn't what did we do right and what did we do wrong?
Yeah.
It's what did we like best and what are we going to do differently next time?
Yeah.
Those labels are activating to the fact that we're going to play again. We're constructive with how we're approaching feedback. We're not looking to point any blame. We're in this relentless quest for better.
It's almost like the words you use matter.
Almost, right? Who knew?
Love it. All right. So that's super valuable. And I think like on this topic of these different words, another one that's come up quite a bit is this phrase. And I hear it a lot in SaaS companies, especially larger companies. Product managers say it a lot. I need to influence without authority.
Okay.
Right. But I also think it applies to sales. I think it applies to recruiting. You don't technically have authority over your customers or your prospects you're trying to recruit. And I feel like it's in a lot of ways the most pure form of influence. Right. I think that authority dilutes any type of influence you might have because you have the hammer at the end of the day, right? So if someone came to you and they said, look, I need your help. Please coach me up on how do I influence without authority? Like, what's the first tool that you reach for?
I'd firstly ask a clarifying question and say, you're looking to influence without authority or are you looking to create the authority to influence?
Interesting. You say more?
If you are looking to influence somebody to do something, it needs a fulcrum. It needs some form of fact or authority to be able to suggest your recommendation to. My dictionary definition of what selling is earning the right to make a recommendation.
I like that.
Earning the right to make a recommendation. This is then remarkably easy. See, I would say that you should never, ever look to influence somebody to do something unless you can say these words first. And the words you should look to say first are the words because of the fact that you said. Because of the fact that you said blank, blank, and blank, then for those reasons, I'd recommend blank, blank, and blank. That's how you gain the authority to influence. See, if I was looking to influence a customer to be able to invest in your solution, because of the fact that you've shared with us that what you're struggling with is blank and blank and blank, and what you've tried to solve it is blank and blank and blank, and why it's important to you is blank and blank and blank, well, for those reasons, that you're likely to get benefit from this technology because what it's going to do is blank and blank and blank.
Yeah.
You see, what we're doing is we're showing people we know the problem. And that's it. It's everything. If you can show somebody you understand their problem, they'll trust you with a solution. You try to sell somebody in your solution, they'll say that's not the problem. So to influence without authority, you gain the authority by showing them that you know them, demonstrating empathy, and then you back it up by proving this. How do you prove it? Well, what people want to know in decision making, they want to know, have you done this before? Have you done it recently? And have you done it for someone like me? If you can answer those three questions with a resounding yes, You go from interest to intent almost instantaneously. So you want to be able to do enough research to be able to say, because of the fact that you said blank, blank, and blank, for those reasons, I'd recommend blank, blank, and blank. And then to get them from maybe to heck yes, you want to show them you've done this before, show them you've done it recently, and show them you've done it for someone like them. And that could be case studies, that could be logos, that could be testimonials, that could be online reviews.
Yeah.
It could be all of those different things. But we live in a market right now that if you are looking to convince people to choose you in a crowded marketplace, you need proof.
Yeah. So I think that lends itself really well in the sales conversation, right? You need your discovery call, because of these business problems you laid out. What about in internal teams? Like maybe we can walk through an example on that.
You'd ask a series of questions about what somebody's looking to be able to do with their career. And because of the fact that you said that what you're looking to be able to do is to go far in this company, and that you are keen to be able to make sure that your ideas are heard, and that you're committed to the idea that the success of the project is better and more important than you being right all those times. For those reasons, what I've decided to do is I've decided to let Mikey run the lead on this project over here to create the capacity for you to be able to focus your creativity on this project over here that I believe may well serve you in the longer term career tracks.
Got it. So to abstract it out, it's closing a loop back to whatever the other party's goals are.
It's attaching unique reason to your recommendation that shows that you understand what's important to the other person. The easiest way to be able to test this is if your recommendation finishes with their inside voice saying, that's right. Not their inside voice saying, you're right. There's a difference between those two things, right? If their inside voice says, you're right, you're right, you're right, they're accepting, kinda. When they say you're right, what they're doing is like, I get it, but not fully.
Yeah.
When they say that's right, we're moving.
It's like a acknowledgement of fact versus acquiescing to an opinion. Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Exactly it.
That's interesting. So figuring out what the other party needs, active listening, tie it back, base your recommendation on what the thing that they said they need, and position it as an acknowledgement of fact.
100%.
Then you couple that with the fact that you have the track record of recently helping someone like them with results, and
That's
you should be on the
and
way.
we should be completely friction free.
I love it. That's some solid sales training in like 7 minutes. That's pretty good.
Oh, it's everything training. It's leadership training. It's parenting training. It's, marriage counseling. It's the whole thing. We didn't just do sales training in 7 minutes. We changed the world.
Yeah. That's solid. There's 300 different versions of the book, right? I see it. That's cool. I want to talk about one more, I think, what I consider to be a pretty big concept inside of companies before we transition into how to actually apply this stuff. But it's this concept of progress. I think that you've written about this a bit. I think about it all the time, right? Where I find that I live in this tension when I run teams between wanting to cultivate a culture of winning and a culture of recognizing our wins and finding the positivity, but also this perpetual dissatisfaction that we haven't yet arrived yet and wanting to keep everyone focused on the finish line.
Right.
I noticed that you had something similar, right? You wrote about working on the steps versus celebrating the finish line prematurely. And I was like, oh my gosh, we have to talk about this.
Yeah.
Right. Like, how do you see this problem? Can you just unpack your point of view on this?
Well, firstly, I think we have a problem in modern business that we keep chasing these finish lines. And, whether that's a marketing funnel to a point of conversion, whether that's a checkpoint to the launch to then say, well, now got to do the next launch, to now the next launch. There's this permanent start, stop, which can only end up being exhausting. Yeah. Even on an emotional level, right? Like you cannot maintain things. If you're looking for long-term success, I try to think about every race like it's in an infinity loop. Every race is an infinity loop. We're not getting off this thing. So let's set ourselves up for long term. And we want to stay focused in our mindset on the prize, but in our daily activity on the step. What's the next step? What's the next step? What's the next step? And if you're only focused on today's work today, but with a vision into the future, you can find success regularly, because success is just a feeling. Nobody is successful. People feel successful. So as leaders, if you can keep redefining what success looks like today, you can have more people jumping over that bar. Yet as leaders, what we sometimes tend to do is to say, well, no, the bar's up here. And by keep putting the bar up here, people live most of their days feeling less than successful. Therefore, you're asking people to do their best work whilst feeling like a failure. seems pretty darn ridiculous to me. Whereas if what we can do is just be the pacemaker, to say next step, keep celebrating the steps, then what might happen is people might run farther than the finish line. If somebody knows they're running a 100-meter race, what do they do when they get to 100 meters?
They stop.
Right?
Yeah.
That winds down pretty darn quick. If the job was just putting one foot in front of the other as fast as you can, they'd probably go more than 100.
Yeah.
They'd probably reach somewhere that they didn't imagine. And as leaders, sometimes I think we have to know that more is possible, but not expect more from people in the moment.
It's so counterintuitive when you think about type A entrepreneurs, right? I mean, goal-oriented to a fault, and because I'm that way, but one of the journeys I feel like I've been on that maps really well to this conversation is trying to be more process-oriented versus goal-oriented.
Well, here's what we do as entrepreneurial leaders. Like, we can paint this giant vision. Imagine the vision is this. And I wish I could just have a picture of this right now. I got delivered a gift. I did a speaking event for a company called Maersk, a giant logistics company. The gift they gave me, whilst I was in person with them in Barcelona, came in a box that was this big. And it was a giant Maersk ship, like a seahorse with all of the shipping containers on it, which was really quite cool. Lego.
Oh, wow.
Lego ship.
That's awesome.
So awesome. And I opened the box up, and this is a significant overwhelm. I'm like, at least I hope I'm never going to find time to be able to get this. I hope there's more important things to do with my time than to be able to build this thing. So I ended up outsourcing it to somebody in the team to be able to build it. But what it made me think about is what we do as entrepreneurs is we're good at painting the vision of what's on the front of the Lego box, right? We can do that awesomely without any trouble at any one period of time. But if the contents of that Lego box was poured out all over the floor, and all you had is the picture of the box, and say, so, hey guys, we can do this. You just do your part today, and that we'll get to the point that we'll achieve that. The majority of people on the planet are going to look down at that pile of blocks and go, you're joking.
Yeah.
I don't see it. There's a pile of blocks, and you think we're going to make that? You're a joker. It isn't until somebody can say, well, look, here's the instructions, one phase at a time.
Yeah.
That if you say, well, actually, if you just put those bits on there, that's winning. And this Maersk Lego ship took 2 months to build.
Wow.
And it came from a member of my team that while she was doing other projects and she didn't really have full-time work to do, but I wanted to pay her full-time money, I said, every time that you're short of knowing what to do and wondering what to work on next on this big project, go into the boardroom, go work on the Lego. Took 2 months over a period of time. She feels pretty darn happy that she built this Lego. I feel pretty darn happy that she built this Lego. Now sits on my office shelf. But we've got to be good at painting the picture of the Lego that we're building, but brave enough to be able to break the steps down to a fact that people feel comfortable and confident, and most importantly, successful, achieving the steps, and the momentum carries them to the next one, to the next one, to the next one.
Yeah. So it's like, just trying to read it back. So as the leader, it's on us to figure out how to break down the goal into the steps and then make sure we celebrate the steps instead of perseverating that we haven't hit the goal.
Correct.
Got it.
And putting the emphasis on winning.
Yeah.
Not the emphasis on what we haven't done yet. And with all the talk around burnout, all the talk about churn of employees, we cause half of this ourselves by putting people onto tracks that are impossible to run on. And I think there was a historic point in time where employees felt happy to have a job. The world we currently live in, as I see it, certainly into the organizations I've had the privilege of working with, is most of those leaders are like, I'm goddamn happy and I got some employees.
Yeah.
And I believe the way that we can actually articulate what winning looks like will help us keep our employees more than anything else. Because if they feel successful, they feel like they're winning, they're focused on the steps, we'll probably all go a bigger distance than we would have done than if we were focused on the prize.
Yeah, I say it's like a fascinating bit of dissonance too, because when we talk about ourselves, we think about identity and we need to, visualize who we want to be, and then only then will it manifest. But you're right, then we make our employees, I loved your point earlier, feel like they're not winning and expect them to act like winners when we tell them they're losing all the time, which we would never do to ourselves.
Correct. But even look at it from a fitness and a health creation point of view, is you can have all the vision in the world of what you want to look like 18 months on from now, and all the belief in the world. You can do your affirmations and your manifestations and everything that you look like. But if you don't get up every day and go put in a meaningful workout, and if you don't put half decent fuel inside your body whilst you're following on that journey, you will not achieve the vision.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how much everything else is in place.
Yeah.
If you can't break it down into steps, you don't understand it cleanly enough either.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great point too. Yeah. If you can't find the route to actually get there, you haven't done the work.
Right.
All right. So we've got this beautiful little book. I love
Yep.
how you call it a little book. It's so true.
It's my tiny, massive book.
Yeah. A tiny book full of these big ideas. It's 23 phrases.
Yep.
Other than saying commit them all to memory and be able to recall them at a moment's notice, which
Yep.
is difficult. Like, how do
It's
you?
impossible. It's probably not even that useful either.
Yeah. So how do you bring this to life?
There are two very simple ways that you can bring this to life. One is you could decide what is one of the most important or critical conversations that's either recurringly showing up in your world right now or is going to show up in your world with a level of high stakesness to it.
Mm-hmm.
So a recurring conversation or an upcoming important conversation. And what you could then do is you could take the book from the beginning and you could write yourself an example with every sequence of words that would help you in that scenario.
So run through all 23 and do a hypothetical and write it down.
Yeah.
Got it.
Hypothetical setting of examples. So if you are, give me a scenario right now.
Trying to recruit someone to come work for our company.
Okay. So like, I'm going to take the book from the beginning and I'm going to say, I'm not sure if it's for you, but I got an opportunity in our organization that I think might be a great fit for you. How open-minded would you be to sitting down and having a discussion to find out what that could look like? And who do you know who's already inside our organization that is happy to share their experience of working with us? And how would you feel if you could be a part of something that was significant in a small organization as opposed to just a cog in a big machine? And just imagine how much more fun it will be being part of an organization that's making a real difference as opposed to just another number. And when would be a good time for us to sit down and have our next conversation? And I'm guessing you haven't got around to making your mind up yet.
I'm laughing because it sounds like they're purpose written for this exact example.
Right.
They're purpose written for every example.
Correct.
It's beautiful.
This is just music notes.
Yeah.
Look, the way I see it is you have three options. Is you can, confidently stay in your same old role and make your mama proud about the name that you have on your resume and where she tells everybody that it is your work. By alternative, if it's just about passion for you, you could follow a passion project. I mean, you always said that you wanted to learn piano. Or by alternative is you could bring all that passion, you could put it inside a project that's going to make lasting change, have real impact on the society, and know that what you did is you used all that creativity that you said was such an important factor of yours and apply it towards something where you're actually going to make lasting change. Because there are two types of people in this world. There are those that say that they want things to be better, and there are those that actually do the work. And I bet you're a little like me. And then what you'd rather be able to do is to walk your walk as opposed to just to talk your talk. That if you're serious about making a change, then I feel confident that we can make this work for you. I'm at 12, right? Don't worry. You're bound to feel nervous right now. Most people in your situation would probably be giving this very, very serious thought. The good news is that you're not alone in this. And the good news is that with your talent and with your attributes, even if you completely mess this up with us, there will be dozens of other organizations that would be happy to hire you back for a decent job. So what happens next is you're going to spend this evening to think about it. And you're going to decide for sure which direction you're going to go in. But please don't be a maybe. You're going to decide whether you're a heck yes or a heck no. But either way, you're going to know why. See where we're going?
Yeah.
Every example, current scenario. What's another way you could utilize it? Well, you just decide, it's most people Monday. So you pick a day of the week, and you and everybody else inside your organization just picks a random sequence of the words in the book and say, we're going to use this as obnoxiously as we possibly can, as many times as we can today in context.
Yeah.
That's the only thing is we've got to find context for it as many times as possible. At the coffee shop, speaking to a vendor, team meetings, via text, in your Slack channel, when you are, at home and talking to the kids, you've got a 24-hour window that you are going to obnoxiously utilize this single sequence of words in context. And just like an elastic band, if you keep pulling it out, there becomes a point where it doesn't go back. And now you've got muscle memory. The mistake that people make is they think the job is to learn the words. It isn't. It's to master the moments. That's what we're looking to be able to do, is to be ready for the known moments that we're stepping into. So run the words through a known moment, or show up with as many moments as you possibly can in the day and try the words on. And if you're trying them on in low stakes environments, you're getting reps.
Yeah.
So that when you find yourself in a high stakes environment, this isn't, I'm using the words from Phil's books. It's just part of your vocabulary.
Speaking. Yeah. That's a great way to do it. Because what I found the first time I read the book, years ago before I ever had this conversation, is I would find myself like wrapping up the day, reflecting on the conversations I had, and been like, that would have been a great time to state most people, or I should have dropped the 3 options in that,
Right.
at that moment. It's like that momentary recall, I think, is important.
Well, and you're right to do that though too, is do a meaningful debrief in conversations that matter, because your debrief for a conversation you had today becomes your pre-brief for the conversation you're going to have next.
Yeah.
And the more that you start to be able to pre-brief for no moments, the more that you're going to find confidence in those moments. And there's a lot of talk about like scripting. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? And I find it interesting that many of the very best movie moments that are recalled all happened when an actor decided to go off script.
Yeah.
But they didn't wing it. They went off script. They knew exactly the intention that was looking to be created in that moment from the director, from the producer, from the writer. And they used all their experience to say that I believe I can serve this moment better by choosing an alternative option than what's written on the page.
Yeah, that's such an important distinction, right? It's like they are making a calculated bet to deviate their words.
Right.
They're not just
winging
it. Yeah.
This isn't improv.
Yeah.
Like, there's a big reason an improv show is $12 a ticket and a Broadway show is $250 a ticket. But the improv show is a maybe.
Yeah.
What you're looking for at a Broadway show is a guaranteed hit.
Yeah.
And when you hire pros, you want people that are either going to follow the plan or they're going to make a choice that they believe through experience is better than the plan.
Yeah. If you were rewriting this book today, is there a 24th phrase? Is there something that needs to be in there that's not?
I mean, we did rewrite the book. So in the music industry, when you sell 1 million copies of a record, they present you with a gold disc. When you sell 1 million copies of a book, do you know what you get presented with?
Yeah, no idea.
Nothing. 0 things happen. So what I did is I decided to create our own commemorative edition of the book.
Got it.
And I rewrote the book through the lens of, if I was rewriting it today, what would be missing? And I also answered some of the questions that had come to me through the years of yeah buts and what abouts, etc. And the rewritten version of the book has 32 sequences of words. It's only available now as a limited edition, and it's hardcover and it's super sexy. And I did it just for me with a gold ribbon and rounded corners to be my sort of trophy edition to commemorate 1 million copies sold. And possibly my favorite set of words that I included in that book that is not in the OG version of the book is a further clarifying question. And it relates to the moments in time where we want to reach for the words, tell me. Ever found yourself where somebody has done something that you need more information on and you reach for questions like, tell me more about that?
Yeah.
Or maybe a child in your life has done something they shouldn't have done and you reach for words like, tell me what you were thinking. Tell me why you did that. When you reach for tell me's, you're delivering what's called a command order. It's almost certainly going to create friction. Reaching for the words tell me is already presenting some form of subservience, right? If you imagine the visual on this is, if I'm using the words tell me, I'm above you in that conversation.
You can just visually see it, right?
Like the physical visualization on this is downwards. Nobody likes to be on the receiving end of a tell me. But if you swap the words tell me for the words help me.
Help me understand, help me, so on.
The words I was going to reach for, the words help me understand.
Yeah, that's perfect.
And now you've gone from pushy to pulley. Hey, help me understand like the real consequences that come behind this. Help me understand what impact this is having in your world. Help me understand how we could maybe approach this differently.
Yeah.
Help me understand what part I had to play in this. Help me understand what you're hoping to happen here. It's open.
Yeah.
It's loose.
I feel a slide around the table again.
Correct.
Beautiful.
So it's, sequences of words like that soften scenarios where otherwise they would have been high stakes and conflict. And the reason that I think word sequences like that are so important and probably deserve more airtime is the stereotypical version of what being highly influential, highly persuasive looks like are images that most people wouldn't like to be associated with themselves. It is that alpha male, gregarious, forcing people into scenarios that they're not like persistency. It is using enthusiasm as a tool to carry people over the finish line. What I've learned to be far, far more kind and successful is just simply seek clarity. Is to be kind enough to go into conversations neutral. Is not to look to force agendas. Instead, be happy in the gray space. Because the gray space is the safe space, which in turn is a play space, which allows us to create new normals. And that's what true influence is taking 2 + 2 and creating 5. Not saying, can I steal your 2? And as we sit and have this conversation at the back end of 2024, that's the direction of the world that we all want to live in.
Yeah.
Is collaborative environments that have 2 winners, not a winner and a loser.
Yeah.
And much of influence and persuasion has been focused on I win at your expense. And I'd like to move us away from the Wolf of Wall Street version of winning.
Yeah.
And move it towards collaboration, innovation, and togetherness, creating something that didn't exist as the result of 2 people coming together.
I think that's, for me, on my own journey in life, that's been one of the things that it's like a foundational part of what I believe that I feel like I didn't learn until far too long, that no one has to lose for me to win.
Right.
And vice versa.
Yep.
We can win together.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And if you're not aligned with people that want to win together, then they're just not your people.
Yeah.
Go find some
I'll
others.
find some new ones. Wait, where do people go to find more Phil?
I'm pretty available. If you're searching online, use the M in my middle initial and you won't find the sea of Phil Joneses. You'll probably find just me, so Phil M. Jones. If you want to continue the conversation, something you've heard today, the 2 social platforms that I'm most active on personally is Instagram, where I'm at Phil M. Jones UK, or search Phil space M space Jones on LinkedIn, and we can continue conversations there.
Amazing. I really appreciate your time. This was a blast.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
This podcast is brought to you by SaaS Academy, the coaching program for B2B SaaS founders who want to scale their businesses while creating more freedom in their lives. You can visit saasacademy.com if you want to learn more. I'm Johnny Page, and your host for this episode was my good friend and buddy, Matt Verlaque. A special thank you to our guest and former client, Chris Ronzio, for sharing his expertise and story with us. This episode was produced by Nicole Beaulieu, Cooper Bernath, Devin Homus, and Chandler Jenkins. Hey, if you enjoyed this episode, can you do me a favor? Take a moment to subscribe and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback means the world to us, and honestly, it helps us reach more founders just like you. With that said, we'll see you next time on the SaaS Academy podcast.